of kidnapping Yidden for ransom. And he's one of the main three pillars of Psak Halacha today.
Who was he in for? What was he in? What was he charged with?
I don't know if he was charged with anything. I'm not sure how just things were in those days. His biggest crime was probably that he was Jewish. But the Rosh, that he grew up in Europe, in Germany, and he ended up leaving Germany because of the persecution, and he moved to the Middle East. He moved to the Svardish neighborhood. He moved, not the Middle East, I'm sorry, he moved to Spain. And then he became Hugger, so he sort of straddled the Ashkenazi world as well as the Sephardi world.
What year was this?
This is in the 1200s. It's also Reb Shimon Shkopser outside. So it's Husam Yochanan Alein. Okay, we are up to the Mishnah on Daf Tesam and Aleph. Yesterday we learned how sunlight could be very healthy, and the little dust particles that you see in the sun rays are healthy. According to the first Shita, that was according to Abaye, but Reb Shimon ben Lakish said that not necessarily. He said, La'asad Lavoi, the sun is going to be very therapeutic for the tzaddikim, and it's going to burn up the Rishonim. Like they say, there was a Yid who was he was sitting and learning. He was in Gehenna, like we said, that Gehenna and Gan Eden are the same thing. You sit and learn, and those people who like that, the tzaddikim, for them that's Gan Eden, and for the Rishonim it's Gehenna. So they say that this fellow was there in Gehenna learning, and he got up because he wanted to take a coffee break and go make himself a coffee. And as he's about to get out of his seat, a waiter comes with a coffee and says, "This is Gehenna. You don't get to go out for a coffee break. Here's your coffee right here." Okay, Tzak Tehelig Mishnah. Kinidrei Rishoyim, we're going to learn some unusual ways of expressing another. And this is going back as a continuation. The end of the Mishnah, of the first Mishnah, was talking about Yodos, Nedarim, and now we're continuing on with that theme. Kinidrei Rishoyim Nodar B'Nozir U'B'Karban U'B'Shua. And the Ram explains, Hakmas Nisan, this Mishnah, Nami Pirusha the Yosy. It's a continuation of elaborating on different expressions that would be considered Yodos, meaning an incomplete statement. The Gemara is going to explain what exactly he said, because just the words of the Mishnah, it doesn't really have clarity of meaning to us. So this is what it meant. Im Omar, if a person said as follows, Kinidre Rishoyim, so that's how he started his sentence. Kinidre Rishoyim, like the Nedarim of Rishoyim, Hareini, those were the three words he said. Kinidre Rishoyim Hareini, like the Neder of Rishoyim, I am. And there was a Nazir passing by. So if he wanted to complete his sentence, he would have said, Kinidre Rishoyim Hareini Nazir. But he didn't say Nazir. So the Omar Kinidre Rishoyim Hareini, Nazir Oivel Harehu Nazir. He would be considered a Nazir. The Chain Im Omar Kinidre Rishoyim Alai, as if you said Harei Alai Oila, the Kinidre Rishoyim Alai, Chayiv Karban. He'll be Chayiv a Karban. So that is what it means. Kinidre Rishoyim, thank you. Nadar, bin Nazir, meaning if he said Hareini, the Karban if he said Alai, Umistavra Nami Zoktaran, I think that when the Mishnah is referring to the Karban, it's the Dafka Kishahoisa Behema Munechas Lafana. Just like when he said Hareini, it only really even means a yad if there's a Nazir passing by, so we know what he's referring to. So too, when he said Alai, it's only considered a schayvus to bring a Karban if there's actually an animal walking by. The Cheinami im Omar Kinidre Rishoyim Heimenu, which would be the Shavua. Shaloi Oichel. He said Kinidre Rishoyim Heimenu Shaloi Oichel. But he didn't specify what he wasn't going to eat. So that's where the missing words are. And there was a kikar right in front of him. Like for instance, there's a carrot and a piece of cake in front of you, and you make a shvua, I'm not going to eat. Which one do you think he meant? Right? So harehu b'shvua.
He meant the cake
Harei
'cause he's on a
b'shua-
diet.
Harei b'shua shelo yachlan. So that's a shavua not to eat it. U'mechayev b'chol hani, and he's mechuyev in all of these cases. Ki amar kinidre rishoyim. So what does it mean kinidre rishoyim? Really, he should just say a nose is walking by hareini. An animal's there, harei alai. A kikar is there, and you say hey menu. But what is this kinidre rishoyim? So the Ran explains what this fellow is trying to say. Rishoyim make nedarim. Tzaddikim don't make nedarim. Now it doesn't mean our mamash or Russia. It just means it's inappropriate to make nedarim. So therefore, kinidre rishoyim, meaning I'm making a neder, just like a person who makes inappropriate nedarim. So yeah. So we're going to see. We're going to. That's a big question. Now, there is an in to be mizarij yourself to do a mitzvah. That's what you're referring to. We learned yesterday, but we're gonna learn more today about if it's good to make a neder or if it's not good to make a neder. So mechay b'chani ki amar kinidre rishoyim. Why? Sharei rishoyim darkam lidar b'chalelu. It's their derech. B'pnei shein royal lasses case, since it's inappropriate to make the darm, kari lu nidre rishoyim. Sharei rishoyim im l'oisei davar kein nirabeinai. So it's not a real Russia. It just means someone who makes the darm. And the Mefarshim explain when people are be'ez tzara, they tend to make the darm. Like the famous story where somebody was choking to death, and he was like, "Help me! I'll give you anything you want. Help me!" So someone comes and does the Heimlich and saves his life. And then he turns to him and says, "Okay, so how much do I owe you?" So he tells him, "Remember when you were choking, you said you'll give me anything that I want?" He said, "Yeah. I just want half of what you were willing to give me." Right? So when people are be'ez tzara, they make the dora, but they're not making it with rational peace of mind. Making and the Ran's going to elaborate shortly, making a nadava, which is what it's called when you're rational and calm, and you're really going to keep it, that's something that's admirable. But making it when you're not of sound mind and you're stressed and you're reacting to something, that's not appropriate. So that's what the Ran here is saying, or that's what you could say the Ran is saying here. That's why it's nidr shoyim, because it's an inappropriate thing. So if I said I'm making this nether like an inappropriate nether, it works. Because even an inappropriate nether works. The point that I want to raise, that I just want to focus on a little bit, because it might come out in the wash as we continue learning the Ran, is that Kinidre Rishonim has nothing to do with the Yad. The Yad is that I didn't say Hareini Nazir. I said Hareini, and this guy was walking by. I said Harei Alai, and the Behem was walking by. Kinidre Rishonim is not really, so far from what we've read, it's not Yad related. It just happens to be an extra clause that he put in. But that's not a Yad. Yad means I said something that was incomplete. So, but Kinidre Rishonim doesn't make it incomplete. That's just a separate T'nai. The part of the neder in this case that was incomplete, you didn't say Hareini Nazir. You said Hareini, and there was a Nazir over the phone. It happens to be you put another condition on it, it should be Kinidre Rishonim. But that's not Yad related. That's like an extra outside force. So I just want to bring that up. I don't know if I'll have a teretz to it, but I just want to bring that up because it might be relevant to something that the Ran says a little bit later. So let's see again the Mishnah. Kinidre Rishonim Nazir B'Nazir B'Kar B'Nivshua. It works. Well, what if it's Kinidre Kesherim? Kesherim don't make Nadar. You said Kinidre Rishonim Eloi Amar Klum. That's not Yad related. It's just saying you're saying I'm making a neder like a neder of a kosher. Being that a kosher doesn't make a neder, I don't really mean to make a neder at all. So it's basically it's like a t'nai. He's saying I only want to make niduk shem. If niduk shem don't make the darim, then I don't want such a neder. I'm sorry. It's like a wink, exactly. But that's not. But my point is not yad related. That's nothing to do with yad. It's just a different statement that disqualifies this whole neder. Niduk shem.
So what's the point of him saying anything at all?
Correct lotion and we take him seriously, but he waits. He doesn't do it in the lotion. He doesn't like a hand, proper.
I don't think that would be relevant because we look at what the lotion means. We look at what the lotion means even without what the guy's thinking.
If it doesn't mean.
But Duvi's asking, why did he say something so stupid?
No, if it doesn't mean anything, then why is he saying anything?
Something stupid.
No, why, it
Most of
doesn't
the
mean
Nedarim,
anything. Why is he saying anything?
When we learn Maseches Kanim, I think it's called, every time your wife opens her mouth and says an extra word, it costs you another 5,000 birds, right? Why did you open your mouth? Well, just keep your mouth shut, right? Most of these Masechtas are people getting into trouble by things that they said,
No,
which
but
is a pretty
obviously,
parallel to how life works anyway.
if he's saying something, then he means something. Or why say anything at all if he means nothing?
Do we stop? What?
I said, why say anything at all if he means absolutely nothing? No, I'm just saying. So he
That's
must
the
mean
$1,000,000
something.
question.
No, but he
You
must.
don't want to make a net, don't say anything.
But he must. So he must want to make something. Is my point.
Listen, there's a lot of people that the Gemara says halachas about that I'd love to have a talk with. What were you thinking? Chesed, you're saying that? So Zok the Gemara, right? The Kenidrik Sheir. Zok the Ram. Afal gav the Amar Hareini or Alai or Heimenu. Remember, Hareini is referring to the Nazir, Alai is referring to the carbon, and Heimenu is referring to someone answering himself to the Kikar. V'hoya Nazir, oy Behema, oy Kikar Lefanav, loy Omar Klum, that's not a nether at all. Why? Share Enak Sherim Naidru. Sherim don't make Nedarim. She'ein Rishoyin Lasses Kain, because it's not appropriate to do. But who adinami? Im Omar Kenidvas Rishoyim Alai. Even if you said Kenidvas Rishoyim Alai, which means in the dove of a Russia doesn't make the doves. So it's also something that's not happening. Loy Omar Klum, Lufi She'ein Rishoyim Noidim. They don't make the doves. She'im Heim Noidim Einam Neshorim Leisadover. The dove is appropriate. Nether is not appropriate. So right away you should start thinking, what do you mean Nedava nether? We know by a carbon there's a Harei Alai, which is a nether, there's a Rezu, that's a Nedava. How does Nedava and nether apply to Kikor? How does Nedava or nether apply to making yourself a Nazir? Right? It doesn't make sense. So that's the next thing that the Ran is going to deal with. So let's just read the whole Mishnah as a whole. Kinidra Rishayim, Nadar ben Nazir b'Karbon B'Shvua. Because Rishayim do make Nedarim. But if you hit Kinidra Ksherim, which is basically saying this is not a real nether, then therefore Lo Yamar Klum. What if it's Kinidvaisam, like the Nedava of a kosher, then Nadar ben Nazir of a carbon. If you noticed, the Kikar, the Shavua, is very glaringly missing. And that's what the Ran is going to explain. Kinidvaisam Nadar ben Nazir of a carbon. Why? Shareach Ksherim misnadvim heim the carbon uva Naziris. They only engage in making the davos of karbanos and of naziris, not of shvuas. Hilchach ki amar hareini v'hayad nazir over lefanav harehu nazir v'chi amar alai ubehema munachas lefanav havalei ki amar harehu karban nedavam avol shvua loy mechayiv. Never will there be a shvua afilu haya kikar munach lefanav the amar heimenu sheloi oichel. You know why? Ksherim never swear. So since Ksherim never swear, there's no way to have a Shvua Kenidvas Ksherim. Break the Ran Chaim sees Kasha. This is exactly your Kasha. There's exactly Chaim sees Kasha. How can you say it's not good to make Shvuas? We just learned yesterday that it's a good thing. Zokt Gemara, Ahi Shvua loy mikri nedava. That's not even called on the dava. So if you said kinidvasam, that shvua wouldn't be included. You know why? Shareik v'arheim mechuyavim l'kayim es mitzvah. Those cases you're mechuyav already, so you're not giving a dava to oblige yourself to do something that you don't have to do anyway. You would have had to do it anyway. So that's therefore it's not called a dava. There's no such thing as a shvuas nedava, and that's why when we say kinidvasam, it would only work for a carbon or for nazirs. And now to the next important kasha. The ikala medak. Harei nedava einay ella ba'aymer hareizu. Right? We know on nedava you say hareizu oila. And remember we said nedava you're not chayav b'chariyusam because this is the carbon, and if something happens to it, there's no liability on me. And on neders you said harei alai. I accept upon myself, which means I am chayav b'chariyus. So at first glance, what would you think has more of an adivas lay? The hareizu, where I'm not mochim in achrayis, or the harei alai, where you're taking full responsibility. That's what you would think, but it's exactly the opposite. The chiluk, so we'll get to that in a second. But the problem is the chiluk zeh, this difference between hareizu and harei alai, lesna ela b'dvarim the karbonis. That applies very well when you're talking about a carbon. Aval b'Naziris, my nether, umay nedova, shaychi bei. How do you have the lashon nether and nedova relative to Naziris? You could only have one thing. You're refraining from doing things. There's no giving something. So near be'enai. So the Ran opens up our eyes to the concept of neder and to the concept of nedava, not just the actual halachas. The neder perushai davar she'enei ba legamri v'nidvus aleiv. When you make a neder, you're not totally committed to giving it. You know why? Because you didn't give it yet. Unedava perushai masha adam noidu yosem v'nidvus nafshai. He's more giving because he's actually immediately giving it. It's like the difference between pledging tzedakah and pulling cash out of your pocket and putting it into the pushka. V'shemaisa v'yosei ritzuyim. And therefore, Nedava, so even though Nedava ain't a chayv b'chayusai, but it's more Nediva slave because you're separating yourself from it right now. You're delivering it immediately. And therefore, and that's where this whole idea came from. The neder who aray alai. Why is the neder aray alai? Levishanim is not of lagamri. Because you're not really giving, you're just pledging. Kivan shaloi hifrishu achsho. You didn't separate it now. You're going to give eventually. Unedava hu bo'emer harezu. You know why? Levisha misnadav nidroi. Since he's misnadav nidroi yoser rotzi. His neder is more rotzi because he's giving it right now. So now the Ran is opening up and broadening the term of neder nedava. It's not just a technical term. It's are you giving with a true nediva slave and a true rotzin? And therefore it's yoser rotzin to the Rabbanim Shalom, or are you giving it with some level of reservation? The chivin shezehu pirusham shal neder nedava. Now that we understand the soft issues of what a neder nedava is, then af b'nazir it applies even by nazir. Even though the technical halachas of Naziris are the same, whether they're considered neder or nedava. Someone who's more errant than he has a more serious kavanah, kari nizirus nedava, kari neder. So you're going to start saying, come on, you're splitting hairs. How do you know? So the Gemara later is going to give examples with a litmus test. How you can tell that somebody did the Naziris with the Diva slave, and how you could tell if it was the Torah's Neder. We're actually going to have a litmus test for that.
So assuming that Davis has just given the $1 is like the rest of the loser because she separated not from $1.
That dollar is Benedivus. It's more Benedivus.
But the reason why it's not
Chaim raises money. So he says, I know a lot of Kaga Chazanim that give me $1 right away. And then there's people who are generous who care, who give me thousands of dollars, but I have to come back. I hear what you're saying. That's right. When I say a piece of cake, the Yitzhak is up to fun. And the Yitzhak this is how fun this is El to eat. Okay, so Zok the Gemara weiter. Zok Verushoyim Kishanodim Menazer Ein Kavadosim Mitzui Legamri. Aval Aksher, but kosher people Mitoich Shekavadosim Shlema Uritzuya, since their kavanah is complete. The Ein Benizirusam Shum Nidnud Avera, and there's no Nidnud Avera in their Naziris. Kari Nizirosam Nedava. That's why their Naziris is called a Nedava. Bahanu Darmina Begamara Gab Nedava the Naziris. Here the one is telling us, I'm going to give you concrete examples with the litmus test of what's a Naziris benedivos and what's a Naziris beneder. So now we at least understand our Mishnah. The only thing that I've raised, that I don't know if it's a kash or not, is why is the Mishnah mixing in Nidri Sharm L'Gaba Yodas? It's a totally separate thing. It shouldn't have anything to do with Yodas. And I think we might have a teretz soon, and then we'll see. I'll read around, and you'll tell me if you think it makes sense. Maybe what he's saying is, how do you know he's saying Isser? Maybe he's saying Heter. Maybe what he's saying is Kenid Yerushalayim L'Nedarim. Why are you fartaching his words to say, I want to make a neder like the Yerushalayim? Maybe he's saying, I don't want to make a neder like the Yerushalayim. Amar Shmuel, Ba'omer, this is the words that he used. Kenid Yerushalayim Hareini, or Kenidre Rishoyim Alai, or Kenidre Rishoyim Haimenu. So therefore, Hareini is B'Naziris, Alai is B'Karbon, and Haimenu is B'Shvua. So if you said Alai, you're obviously accepting upon yourself something. So when we learned the Ran in the Mishnah, we already knew it was a lie. But the Ran only knew it because the Gemara fears us, like we ran just with the Parish of Gemara. So it's clear from your expression that you want to accept upon yourself the Isser. Okay? So Zok to Gemara Vayter, Hareini is Naziris. Why? Dilma Hareini B'Tainis Gomer. Just because I said Hareini, does that mean I want to become a Nazir? Maybe it means I want to do a fast. The Gemara didn't know that yet. That's also because of the Parish of Gemara. Amar Shmuel Kishayu Nazir Ayvel Lefanav. It's Kishmak to write around when you saw the Gemara already. So that's exactly where the Ran got it from. Heimenu B'Shvua. Who said Heimenu means a Shvua? Who said Heimenu means I don't want to eat? Dom Heimenu Dachilakamer. Maybe I mean that I do want to eat. I'm making a Shvua that I will eat the kikar. That's more realistic. Amar Rava, the Amar Heimenu Shaloi Oichel. He spoke out, I won't eat. If you said Heimenu Shaloi Oichel, so there's no yad. You said it all. He never mentioned the word shvua. He just said, I won't eat. Kamash malam, that would be a din shvua. So this is the first hint. Maybe that's why it's a yad. The Nidri Rishon is as if I spoke out the word shvua. But my question to you is, what if I said Hareini Heimenu Shaloi Oichel? What if I didn't say Nidri Rishon? No, this is Shaloi Oichel is a shvua. We're using the term neder, but it's technically a shvua. It's not asking this. It's Shaloi Oichel. The Mishnah calls it a shvua. So it's a shvua. So that's the question I want to ask you. The Gemara fears us, since I didn't mention the word shvua, could be no or kamash malam. So let me ask you a question. Kamash malam, that what? That the Kenidri, when I said Kenidri Rishoyim, that was my expression of a shvua? Or Kamash Malon, that even if I took away the Kenidri Rishoyim and just the Hareini, the Heimenu Shaloi Oichel is good enough. So if you hold you need the Kenidri Rishoyim, that answers my question. That's why it's part of the yad. Because my question, Kenidri Rishoyim is a completely different factor. So if you hold you need the Kenidri Rishoyim, then maybe you could say that's part of the yad. And that's what the Ran's going to discuss. So let's see what the Ran says.
How does the idea of Rishonim come into it? What does it add? What does it subtract? I'm not following it.
What it does is he's sort of putting a condition on his expression. He says, my intention is to do what a Russia does. And a Russia makes Nedarim, so my intention is to make a Nedarim. But if he says, my intention is to do what a tzaddik does in Neder, and we know a tzaddik doesn't do Nedarim, it's like he's pre-disqualifying his neder even before he said it. It's like being Moshe Maidol.
Doesn't matter what you do. It's
We analyzed your language, detachment and so.
And also, if you didn't say the right term, doesn't work.
Exactly.
So the Chachomim are going to say all
these words, they pass on what these words mean. Yeah, exactly. So Zok the Heilige Ran, Kishayu Nazar Eibel Lefanah. Fafilu Hachi. This is the very important Ran over here. So I need everybody to focus on this Ran because I need consensus over here. Fafilu Hachi, even though if there's a Nazar Eibel Lefanah, Kika Amar Kenidri Rishayim Hareini. It only works if he said Kenidri Rishayim Hareini. Aval Ki Amar Hareini Lechudei. But if he didn't say Kenidri Rishayim, he just said Hareini Lechudei, Loi Amar Klum, it wouldn't be a good disease. So according to what the Ram just said here, it answers my kasha. Because it's not just a side cop-out. You actually need the expression of Kenidri Rishayim in order to make my words into a shvua, which is like what you alluded to by shvua.
Yosy, depending on what the Ram said before, doesn't it depend on who the Nazir is? Because before he said if it's a tzaddik, then it's an adava, right? So maybe then it depends who the Nazir is.
Why would it matter who the Nazir is? I'm making it like a tzaddik. I'm making it like a Russia. He's already a Nazir. Doesn't matter what type of cake it is.
Because it's Aymed Lefanov, right? So it depends who it is.
That's just to tell us what general topic he's even talking about.
Okay.
So Dr. Ran because we know the halach is if a nose is walking by and you say ha or hey, I want to become the Amrina bePerakama de Kedushin, the Havalei Nazir, Kishan Nazir Oivalafana. So the Ran is asking if we're saying over here without the prefix of Kenidri Rishoyim, Hareini itself isn't conclusive that it's a Kabbalah's Naziris, even though there's a Nazir right there, why does a hey work? What's the difference between Hareini and ha? Right. I hear. So Zok the Gemara, they're different. Mishum Daha Lishnama Alya. It's a much more powerful, strong lashon. Umahani, and it helps without any help, without any assistance. Aval Hareini, the word Hareini isn't conclusive enough. Ilav the Amr Kenidra Rishoyim, unless he spoke at Kenidra Rishoyim, which helps us understand that he's trying to be makabel upon himself Naziris, the alai is taken out. Loi mashma the Amar Midi. So according to this pshat on the Ram, I think my kasha goes away. Because Kenidra Rishoyim isn't just an extra piece of information. It's an integral part of the yad. It's part of what points us in the direction of what he wants to say. Kach b'shra boisai. The problem is the Ran argues. The einai nira be'einai. The Irani loigara me'aha. Why should Irani be any worse than the ha? They're both saying the same thing.
Maybe the word koimen was fixed for the doing. Maybe aha.
So could be that the Ran's Rebbe helped us, but the Ran has a good kasha nishtazoi. Elamasnishin mishum the asal ashminon the Amar Kenidri Rishoyim Hareini. The Amar Kenidri Ksherim Hareini. Thank you. The Amar Kenidri Ksherim Hareini. Afilu b'nazar oibalafan of loy mahani. The Mishnah is trying to tell us the opposite chiddush, not the dasal. In the Chanami Hareini helps by itself, but the chiddush is even if you said Hareini, but if you spoke like Kenidri Rishoyim, it undoes it. Therefore, nakat reisha Kenidri Rishoyim, that it does work. So based on the Ran shot, I have it very fair because Kenidre Sherim is just basically being moist that I don't want my yad to be a yad, but it's not really a question of yad. Because even if I said Kenidre Rishoyim Hareini Nazir, it should have the same effect. If I said Kenidre Tzadikim, what if I said Kenidre Sherim Hareini Nazir? That wouldn't need to be a Nazir because the Kenidre Sherim was like the Moshe Madah. So it doesn't do the Shail of Yad. Yeah.
That wouldn't work.
Pashas, it shouldn't work. So the Oibazoi, this whole Shail according to Ran has nothing to do with the others. It's a separate halacha that if you say Kenidrik Sherim, it's Mavatal your nether. Or maybe it only is Mavatal a Yad nether. Maybe it's not Mavatal or full nether. I don't know. But it's hard to understand that because if you learn Kenidrik Sherim is basically being Moshe Madah, I don't want this. So then, what's the difference if it applies to a yad or if it applies to a full expression? So that's my difficulty. But at least with these two pshatim, it toggles between whether you need the Kenidri Rishoyim as support to illustrate that my yad means I'm being Kabbalah Nazir.
Well, why isn't that or Hareini in the part of yad? That's what I said.
It is.
Okay, that's what you say.
I understand.
And you say that you have
The Ran says they're both the same yad and they both would mean Naziris. But saying Kenidre Ksherim undoes it. Right. But that's not a Shail of Yad. That's just Kenidre Ksherim undoes it. So that's what I don't understand. No, Yad means I didn't complete my full sentence. Kenidre Ksherim means a Chatziga like that to undo it.
Because gewöhnlich Ayad for the words of the neighbor, he just didn't finish. So this is
It's more like a glove than the Yad. Let's see the Gemara right here. How do you know the shvu means I don't want to eat? Maybe you're swearing that you will eat. Zok the Gemara, Kloimar. The Chivan Dikla Memer Dilma Dachil Nakamar. Probably Yadayim Shein Mechichos. So that's the Gemara's kasha. It's Yadayim Shein Mechichos, and we learned to swear the Shmuel Lahavin Yadayim. We learned from Shmuel that Yadayim Shein Mechichos Lahavin Yadayim. Right, and this came from the very first Mishnah where he said Murachakni Mufarashni alone wouldn't be a lashon of nether because Yadayim Shein Mechichos. And it was as a word the Shani Lei Bei Neder L'Dava, which is weiter. So we'll stop.
But the word Haimeni means from it.
That's right. I'll eat from it. Ich lasse nicht die ganze, ich lasse finden. Eat that's nicht die ganze.
That's not the way you determine the
Again, we have the Gemara dictating to us what these things mean. So the Gemara states, that's what he meant. So let's see what the Gemara says right here.
The Gemara says it means that maybe because I mean it doesn't mean that I will eat.
That's only if there's, that's the law, that's when he spoke out Shaloi Oicha. The Gemara fears us only if you spoke out Shaloi Oicha. So Zok the Gemara, Kenidir Yosy Mo Maklum, Kenidvoisam Nedar. Zok the Gemara, Man Tana, the Shainile, Benedul Dava. Clearly, our mission is making a distinction that it's appropriate to make the Davas, but it's inappropriate to make the Durham. Which Tana holds like this? We cannot find a Tana that would agree with this. This would not be consistent with Rav Meir, who holds you should never make any Nedarim, and it's not consistent with Rav Yehuda, who holds you're allowed to make even Nedarim. The Tanya we learned. It says in the pasuk, Toiv Asher Lo Tidar. So before this pasuk, if you have the art scroll, he brings it down. Before this pasuk, it says that you're supposed to pay up your Nedarim, and then afterwards it says Toiv Asher Lo Tidar, Misha Tidar V'Lo Tishalom. So first it says Moitzes Tishma, I think. Is that what it says? No, that's not that pasuk. But let me look it up and tell us. Chayalas Hey. I should know it by heart. We just learned it. It says over here, Kasher Tidar Neder Lelakim Al Ta'achel L'Shalmoi. He ein Chevetz Baksilim Eis Asher Tidar Shalem. So the pasuk first says, pay up your Nedarim, and then it says Toiv Asher Lo Tidar Misha Tidar V'Lo Tishalom. So there's a machlokes how to understand this. The Tanya Toiv Asher Lo Tidar Toiv Mizeh Sheini Neder Kaleka Divrei Meir. So Rav Meir learns, if you did something that you shouldn't have done, then you made a neder, pay it up. But really, the best thing to do is not to make the neder in the first place. That's Rav Meir learns a pasuk. Yehuda Toiv Mizeh Nardu Mashalom. Yehuda learns no. The best thing is you should pay up. You make the door and pay them up, like the pasuk says first. And then if you're not going to be paying them up, then Toiv Asher Lo Tidar Misha Tidar V'Lo Tishalom. So the question is, what's the ultimate? Is the ultimate to make the neder and to fulfill it, like Rabbi Yehuda learns, shot in the pasuk, or is the ultimate not to make the neder in the first place? So the Ram gives us some very interesting insight over here. The Shani Lei Blain Neder and Dava. Damak Shem is Nadin Ve'enim Noidrin. Toiv Museum is Shani Noidr Kalikar. So it's better min Noidr and Mishalim. It's better not to make a neder, even if you're going to make the neder and pay up. Umi Noidr Ve'enim Mishalim. That's for sure. The hill ma'ai kruksiv in the project before it says Esher Shatida Shalim uvazach iksiv Toiv Asher Lo Tidar Kloimer Shu Yosy Toiv Minoider U'Mishalim. The chsiv lo ilminei. It's even better to do what it says in the second pasuk than do what it says in the earlier pasuk. The Kriyav Time Milse, and the pasuk is explaining why it's better not to make a neder in the first place. Mishatidar V'Lo Tishalom Kloimer Shema Tishkach V'Lo Tishalom. Since when you make a neder, you're in danger that you might not fulfill your neder. Better don't make the neder in the first place. So mashmalan hashta, the leishani lei ben neder and dava. So mashma, there's no difference between neder and dava. You should never do it. The loy lashmin, akra, the toiv mikula noidei v'mashalom. The pasuk doesn't say that. The pasuk says don't do anything. So you see, both neder and dava are not good, not consistent with our Mishnah. And if you don't toiv mizem with noidei u'mashalom, v'dosh l'kroi hachi. This is the ultimate. What do I need the pasuk to tell me that even though it's good to make the Durham, if you're not going to pay for your Durham, you shouldn't do them? This is bamish beautiful. Listen to this line. Hachi Kamar, Loite Sover, don't think. Since when you made your nether, you were going to do it, you're going to pay. So at the voice of schus, you got yourself an extra schus because you made this nether, you're a big tzaddik. By making the nether, I already got my schar. That's good. So no, I couldn't pay it off. So I didn't do the second mitzvah. But the first mitzvah I did gewaltig. She'ena came. That's not how it works. She'ena schar b'shas nether el b'shas tashlumin. So there's no schar at all for making the promise in the first place. Kachnir shita zois be'ena. I'm sure Tully has a lot of payers on that. Right. Okay, so now I got to rush because we're running late. So Dr. Mar, Afilu Tamer Reb Meir. Let's say we're going according to Reb Meir. Reb Meir said it's never good to make Nedarim. But maybe Kik Amar Reb Meir, maybe what did Reb Meir say when he says Toiv Asher Lo Tidar is Beneder, but Minidava Loik Amar. Break the Gemara, but that's not what it says. Vakatani Kinidvoisam Nodar Benazar Ubekarbon. It says in our Mishnah, if he said Kinidvoisam, it's Nodar. So you see, you can even make another. Dr. Gemara, Tani Nadav Benazar Ubekarbon. We have to change the Lashon Mishnah. Break the Gemara, I don't understand. Mashna Noidir Deloy, Dilma Asi Bia Lede Takala. If Reb Meir holds that since there's a chance you'll not pay up, don't make the neder. So Nadava should be no difference. Nadava Nami Loy. Why would you make a distinction that Nadava is good? Dilma Asi Bia Lede Takala. Dr. Gemara, Kehilal Hazakein. It's like Hillel Hazakein. The Tanya we learned. Amru al Hillel Hazakein. What type of Nadava is an appropriate Nadava to make? The following. They said about Hillel Hazakein, Shaleimal Adam Ba'ilasai Kol Yamav. Never in his times was anyone ever moil on an oil, on a korban that he brought. That's very difficult. He said, I raise the oil, and he's bringing it. Someone could have enough of it. How did he orchestrate it that no one should be able to have hanoah from his oil? Is because Mevia Keshi Chulun Lazara. He would bring the animal Chulun Lazara. And right there at the Yazara, Umakdisha, so there was so little time, there's merely seconds between the being makdish the animal to it being shechted, that there was very little time for something to happen. I'm sorry? I don't know. I want to finish up first and then we'll look cautious. So therefore, that's what Reb Meir means. There, Reb Meir holds Nadava is good. Okay, so you explained how it's good by Karbanis, but we're also saying that a Nadava works by Naziris too. By Naziris, you're in danger of violating the Naziris. Nadava and Naziris, Michael and Aimer. Zok to Gemara, here's our litmus test. Savarlach is Shimon HaTzadik. The Tanya, Amar Shimon HaTzadik, Miyamai loy achalti Asham Nazir Tamei. Shimon HaTzadik never ate the Asham Nazir Tamei. And we're going to soon see why. Because he holds that the Naziris wasn't done with the right intention, and the guy had after he became tummy, and he realized, now it's not 30 days, now it's another 30 days. I didn't get into this. I didn't know what I was getting into. Forget the whole thing. So he was afraid of Vaitach, even though there was no Torah Nedarim, but since he was afraid that the Naziris wasn't done with the ganze Shleimus, that could be the carbon is Chulun Lazara. Because if he was able to be Mavatal of Naziris, he wasn't sure about Chacham. But since there was that charata that he had, even if he didn't act on it, that thought was enough to spook Shimon HaTzadik to meaning on Hashem Nazir, because maybe it's Chulun Lazara. Ela Pam Achas. Ela Echad, one. He only ate one Hashem Nazir Tamei. And what was this? Pam Achas Ba'adam Nazir Min Adorim. Someone came from the south. He came from Eilat. It makes sense that he came from Eilat. Listen to the story. He had a surfer's body. And I saw him. He was good looking. He had a six pack, and he was strong and muscular from his surfing, and he was tanned. He looked good. He had beautiful locks of hair. He was like a real California beach guy, you know. I told him, Beni, he was coming with his Asham Nazir. And I said, you're such a good-looking guy with such beautiful hair. Why would you do this to yourself? Omrli, he said, I was a shepherd for my father in our city. I didn't have a mirror at home. So I went to fill up water, to bring water for my animals by the kval. And just like Avram saw Sarah, I saw myself. That's this expression, no? Avram saw Sarah? So the Lubliner strikes again. I looked at my reflection in the water. My Yetzirah jumped on me because I saw how incredibly good looking I was. So I think the Ran speaks of Pachas Yitzri Mir Lashon Pachas Kamayim. I was overtaken by passion. It wanted to pull me in a very bad direction. Amarti Loy. He looked like one. Yeah. Amarti Loy. I told my shadow. I was trying to find myself. I spoke to myself with the mirror. Rasha. How dare you be misgo with a world that's not yours? And therefore, I'm making a promise. I'm going to cut my hair, but not stam. I'm going to cut it through a kabbalas naziris, through an acceptance of a level of kedusha. So when Shimon Tzadik heard this, miyad amadati, I stood up, v'nashakti bal roishai, and I kissed him on the head. Amartele, I told him, Bini, son, kamoicha yirbu noizroi naziris b'Yisrael. This is how we should have naziris in Klal Yisrael. Alecha akasav omer ish kiafli, a person who articulates lindar neder nazir lahazir lashem. You are a true nazir. You clearly, even though you became tamei and now you got in deeper than you expected, I have no suffix that there's no tiniest little feeling of charot in your heart because you're in ganten l'shem shemayim. Zok tehelig aran nazir lahazir l'shem shenizirasoi l'shem shemayim. So that's the type of naziris, that's the naziris of a kosher. Matzka floor of money. He became tamei. So matzka floor of money. Maishno asham nazir tamei deloy oichal the osi al chet. Why is it that Shimon HaTzadik didn't want to participate in the Asham Nazir Tamei? Every Asham, every Chatos, he shouldn't have wanted to eat because it came from an Aveira. Zok to Gemara, Amalei Rabbi Yoina, Hainu Taima, it's not because its source was triggered by an Aveira. His problem is Kishain Toyin, I jumped the gun. I said this really, up until now I was supposed to say he didn't want to eat it because it came from an Aveira, because he was matam himself. But I jumped the gun. Kishahin toyin noizrin when they're toyin, when they're having charot, kishem scharten al masem aroim. Someone does something bad, and this is what I mentioned earlier. An impulsive neder is not with a real nediva saleit. It's because I feel guilty now. Something happened, so I make a promise l'tzedakah. So kishem toyin noizrin, they accept nazirs. Kishem metamin, and when they become tamei, and now they have to double the amount of days that they accept in naziris. Imagine they're 29 days in, and then they got to start over again. At that point, they have charota. Rashi says, Duran says, and now it's starting to add up. And that'll be chulin lazor. For Zoktaran, lav dafka, it's not really chulin lazor. Shekos man shelo hitirin chacham nezirus and kayemes. Because the same chayvalein. There's no formal hataris nedarim. Of course, technically it's a kosher or carbon, but Shimon HaTzadik was uncomfortable with eating it because alaka'en chulin ka'amar shemitoich she'en kavanos and ritzuya, since their kavana isn't perfect. Af karboneseim einin ritzuya. Avol b'hachkaver shebamin adorim, but this gentleman who came from Eilat, leka lamecha shlachi, we don't need to worry about it. Shekivin shoys the kavanos kol kach ritzuya b'tchila. Since his intention was so perfect and pristine with his initial Kabbalah and Naziris, Anan Tzadi Shloim Nischaret, we for sure know that he didn't have Charota. Toyin means when they have Charota. Shem Nischaret, I'm saying. Well, how does the article attach the word Toyin? No, Mati is English. Yeah, Kishin Toyin. Morse. If that's the case, afilu nazar taranami, because we say that a nazar also did an aver because he refrained himself from drinking wine. So tomorrow nazar tar loy, you know why? Damudi amid nafshe the yachal lindar. He knew he was able to do it, and he was right because Hitaka was able to do it. The boy sema afilu tema Rabbi Yehuda, or maybe you could even say that our mission is going like Rabbi Yehuda. What does Rabbi Yehuda say? That sometimes it is good to make a neder. If you're going to pay up, it's good to make a neder. So how does that stem with our Mishnah? Doesn't our Mishnah say that a neder only a Rasha makes? He Rabbi Yehuda b'nedava. So it's flipping it around. Rabbi Yehuda meant what type of neder should you make and pay? A nedava. And it's Reb Meir holds you shouldn't even make a nedava. The technical difference is harezu or harei, which means this is a carbon, which means I'm prepared to do it right now. Oh, so the Ran asked that. The Ran asked that on the left. So the Ran said it's not a technical difference, but it's a level of ritzui. When you have a high level of ritzui, it's called a nedava. Now, if I really want to do it and you're being sincere, yeah, nedava is more. You know why nedava is more, shows more of a ritzui? Because you're giving it right now. You're not just pledging, right? So it's not the technical neder nedava. The Ran says it's the concept of neder nedava. If someone did it with the ganze hearts, so you could just say Areni Nazir, or you could say Areni Nazir after an experience like this guy. This guy definitely did it with the ganze hearts. So if you, I feel Rabbi Yehuda Kiyam Rabbi Yehuda ben Nedava. Maybe Rabbi Yehuda is when he says you should make Nedarim and fulfill them. That's only if it's Nedava. But when Neder lo Yomar, Freit Gemara v'Katani Toiv Mizeh Umizeh Noider Umakayim. Didn't Rabbi Yehuda say it's good to be Noider Umakayim? Zok Gemara Tani Noider Umakayim. Freit Gemara Ma'ishna Noider the loy. Just like Rabbi Yehuda says, it's not good to make Nedarim. Dilma Asi Bala Deta Kala. Nedava Nabi. Dilma also bal data color. So why would Rabbi Yehuda allow that? So instead of telling Sue Rabbi Yehuda to what we said from Hillel Zaken, Rabbi Yehuda has his own svara. The Amar Adam maybe kivshasoi la'azara umakdisha v'soymech alev v'shoichta. So Rabbi Yehuda didn't have to come with Hillel Zaken. That's how Rabbi Yehuda himself held you're supposed to do it. The Gemara Teinach Nedava the Karbanas. Nedava the Zeres Michael and Meimar. Mati's question: how do you have Nedava on the Zeres? Zakimar, it's why not coming onto the story of Shimon HaTzadik, which Rabbi Yehuda Tamei, the Tanya Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Chasidim HaRishonim, the Chasidim HaRishonim, HaYimisaven Lahavi Korban Chatos. You know, you're supposed to be Mekayim all Tariq mitzvahs, but you're not supposed to aspire to be Mekayim the mitzvah of the Heshav of Zeh Lasher Gozo. Right? There's certain mitzvahs that you're not supposed to aspire. I want to go to the Ari Mikvah. Right? There's certain mitzvahs that you don't have to. It's not a checklist. You got to check of all 613. But they wanted to be the Korban Chatos, but they weren't willing to be Mechal Shabbos B'Shogig over it. But they wanted to be the Korban Chatos. So what did they do? Maybe the Kol Yidayim, because Hashem protects them from Averis, even B'Shogig. So they're frustrated. I want to be the Chatos. Mahu Yosim, Oyimdim, Umisnavnik Naziris Lamokoim, Kedei She is Chayiv Korban Chatos Lamokoim. They actually went out of their way to become Naziris, because then they'd be able to have the schus of bringing a Korban Chatos. Okay, let's stop here, and we'll be mamshech tomorrow. It's a beautiful Gemara. Beautiful Gemara.
Yeah.